back and then we're going to start. Okie dokie. So beginning practice, right? You can decide if you want to sit, if you want to lay, whatever's going to be good for you. You might have a prop. I have a blanket underneath my tailbone. You might use something different. If you're laying down, maybe you have a pillow or blanket as well. You may even start practice in an entirely different shape, and that's okay. So just do whatever's most comfortable. You don't have to rush to close your eyes just yet. We'll talk a little bit about our theme for practice. And maybe you've already, or are aware, but on Wednesday, we have our full moon, and with our full moon is our first lunar eclipse. So that's always exciting. I love, love, love eclipses of any kind, solar or lunar. Just something that really connects me to my humanness, and maybe you feel the same too, just hearing about it or watching them. It just something like clicks. And the cool thing about technology is even if you're not close to the eclipse, we can just live stream it. And that's a huge blessing. But anyway, I want us to bring up this topic of an eclipse because sometimes we just don't know what to do with them. We might feel like they're really cool or auspicious, and it's still like this really big unknown. And how whenever I talk astronomy or astrology, we'll get to the yoga in a second, but whenever I talk astronomy or astrology, I like to just express the planetary objects and the planets like a clock. And just like when it's 6 a.m. and you might wake up, just like when it's noon and you have lunch, and then when it's 7 p.m. you do this, when it's 6 o'clock we go to yoga, like whatever it is, we respond to our time to then do an activity, right? Or to do an event, to have an experience. Wake up, go to bed, eat, whatever it might be. And when we see eclipses or full moons or different things like this, we respond to them like a clock. So at the time of an eclipse, specifically lunar eclipses, we're going to think about closures. We're going to think about the endings of things, the closings of things. And that's what I'm going to invite for us to think about in our class tonight. And I could go on and on about this topic, but just knowing that, and I think relating it to our own life and then relating it to our Yin Yoga practice is going to do wonders. And I'm really excited for this theme. So just to reiterate, I like to explain, we respond to certain planets and planetary shifts and planetary placements like the way we would respond to a clock at the time of day. And on lunar eclipses, we usually think about the closings of things. Whether we choose to make that close ourselves or it ends up just happening based on universal forces, which we've probably all experienced both. Sometimes we might not be sure, how do we close this thing? And then it just ends up happening for us. Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a blind side, but it's a little, bit of both. And not only in that regard, but in the other regard of when we get to choose to say, hey, I'm done with this. I want to make a shift. I want to make a change. And responding to the planetary placements like a clock, this is a pretty good time to do that. So with that in mind, we will now close our eyes. Feel free to shift around, settle into stillness, and just kind of let that integrate. It was a lot of information, I know, but just let that integrate for a few breaths. Begin to soften into the body. Doing the same thing we always do, but just letting this particular theme flutter throughout the body. And maybe you're referencing the closing of something that might not be directed to your life entirely, but maybe to someone that you know. But how can we use our practice to respond to this particular time in the same way we would respond to a clock? As we welcome this concept, this idea of cycles ending, doors closing, chapters finishing, It gives us an opportunity to honor our growth. It gives us an opportunity to heal or honor from the past. And we do this a lot in Yin because we are stretching our fascial tissue, these past knots that have been created within the body. We're allowing that cycle of a knot of tissue to essentially end as we create more and more length and more elasticity. Allowing ourselves to reset the nervous system, the ending of one pattern and the beginning of another. And these cycles actually exist within our day-to-day a lot more frequently than we realize. And so in our practice, we'll honor the small cycles, but as well as the bigger ones in our life that we may be experiencing. And so with this in mind, let's come to take a few breaths. Together, let's inhale through the nose. And open the lips to exhale. Again, like that, deep breath in. And a deep breath out. This third time, hands can stay relaxed within the lap or hands can gather into prayer. We can take another full cleansing breath or join me for the sound of Om as we breathe in. Om. Gently bowing the chin to the chest. Taking a moment to allow your breath and your vibrations to settle within the heart space, to reverberate off the walls of the inner body, and to seal our intentions for practice. Whenever you're ready, you can slowly open the eyes and bring the hands away. Wherever you are, we'll come back to sit. We're going to start in deer. And you might keep a pillow or blanket underneath your tailbone, but we're going to allow the left shin to come in front of us and the right knee to bend behind us. Okay, so if I were to switch to the side, left knee in front or left shin in front, right knee behind. Maybe looking for that pillow or blanket just to help support the pelvis since we're coming into this tilt naturally as one hip lifts and one hip drops. And if you try out the pillow or blanket and realize you don't like it, that's okay. Just remove it from your tailbone. But building our fort space in front of us, stacking pillows or blocks or books or blankets. You might gently lean over this front shin, and this will be the best place for you today. Maybe you do have the space to walk down to your forearms and deepen the stretch, maybe a little bit more round to the spine. But whatever you're choosing to do, stretching at any particular angle, either way, you're in the shape. Okay, so you're welcome to play around with the degree that you're folding. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know. And then we'll close our eyes. We'll welcome ourselves to start in deer. Beginning to notice any particular sensations where the body might be stretching. Rather than clench and hold your breath as you try to embrace the stretch, we'll instead practice our softening. Letting go of any clenching, any gripping. allowing there to be the flow of the breath and the current of the breath. And softening through the layers of muscles, the layers of bones. Observing the particular sensations that you might feel. And feeling the shift within the body. Now that we've spent some time here in stillness, has the sensations traveled or changed in some way? Maybe you're more receptive to your body's experience as our senses continuously draw inwards. We'll be here for a few more breaths in deer. And then whenever you're ready, we'll gently press down into the floor, into our props, and we'll slowly walk ourselves up to sit. Taking our time to allow the body to unravel. Whether you change directions, maybe you move some props off to the side, maybe you just kind of work around wherever the props are. As you know, we come into a few counter movements, whatever feels good for the body. And keeping this open space, this open dialogue. And you find yourself not necessarily thinking in word or thought. If the body feels like it wants to lay, let it lay. If it feels like it wants a child's pose, come into child's pose, etc. Body will settle into rebound wherever that moment of stillness is. Something like a mini Shavasana, noticing the subtle sensations. And if you'd like to stay here a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to. But whenever you're ready, we'll slowly come back up to sit, however you'd like to get there. No right or wrong. And we'll move into deer on the opposite side. My battery light is blinking and I'll switch them in a second, but I'll try to talk quick enough. Switching to the other side, right shin comes in front, left knee behind. And for whatever reason, if you started on the other side, you'll just, do the other leg. But at least I'll describe it. Right shin in front, left knee behind, and we'll be folding over that right shin. Of course, propping your tailbone if you'd like. And sometimes you lean over the knee or sometimes you lean over the foot a little bit more, and that's fine. Just honor the guidance from the back body and spine, whatever is best for you today. Okay, I'll start our timer. Propping your forearms, your forehead, your chest, whatever it might be. And then we'll settle into the shape here. Noticing the sensations of stretch. They do not have to be the same side. You do not have to be stretching in the same places from the other one, from the other side of deer. Just allowing the body to show up exactly how it is. As we welcome the release of the fascial tissue. And just like the closings of cycles, our stretch has its own cleanse. This cleansing of any unnecessary tension. The cleansing of any unnecessary control. The stretch allows us to begin to formulate this sense of newness in the body. And there's something about letting go of the unnecessary that feels very freeing. Which is what we do in Yin. And so continue to soften here. And check in with the breath from time to time. We'll be here in deer for a few more moments. And then whenever you're ready. Let's gently begin to press down into the floor, into our props. This side of deer might guide you to release differently, gently unraveling the legs. I'm just coming to take any counter movements, any counter shapes. I'm just honoring the body, trusting the body. And whether the hands massage into some sort of muscle group, whether the body stays seated or comes to lay down in some way, but you'll arrive into the space of rebound. And even shifting out of our shape and moving into rebound, there is this, again, this sense of freedom, this openness. We are moving in the unknown in regards to that. And so we'll pause here. Just noticing the subtle sensations. Noticing shift in temperature or shift in temperament. If you'd like to stay here a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to do so. But whenever you're ready, we'll gently begin to awaken. And then we're going to talk about a twist. So you might move some things around, and then you can comfortably come back to lie down. There might be a pillow or blanket underneath the back of the head. Oh, my nose is itchy. Underneath the back of the head. And then any props to the side. So option one, in terms of our supine twist, we can hug the knees into the chest. We're going to twist to the right so that the left leg is on top first. If you need props underneath the bottom right knee or in between the thighs, you're more than welcome to do so. If you'd rather come into hummingbird, you might leave a blanket, a block, or something off to your right. And instead of staying in supine, that left leg can reach out long and rest on that prop. Left leg doesn't have to stay locked by any means. You can have a little bend into the knee. And whether you stay a little bit more on your right side, or if you begin to walk on the shoulders, you can open your left shoulder blade down to the floor. It doesn't have to touch, but if you want to prop your left shoulder, you're welcome to. Letting your arms rest high to the ears, maybe down to a T shape or even lower by the hips. So coming into supine or hummingbird, your choice. Sometimes you might start in one variation and then transition to another. But following those internal cues, and then when your body is ready, it'll settle into stillness. And with the flow of your breath, giving yourself the space and the opportunity to maybe become lighter within the body. The cleansing of cycles, the shifting and changing, whether it's felt through the physical body, maybe the emotional body. Giving us the space to learn and to grow. You can almost make the joke that every yin practice is somewhat like a lunar eclipse space. This idea of letting go of any past holdings, any past experiences that may not have any importance in the present or in our future. Our stretching is consistently letting go of any past experiences as well. Anything that caused the tissue to knot in the first place or to become tight in some way. We'll be here for just a few more breaths. Whenever you're ready. Very slowly, let's gently begin to release. One leg can move at a time. The arms can shift slowly. Maybe the hips move as we gently guide our bodies back to center. Your legs might windshield wiper for a moment. Eventually, legs can straighten out. Again, finding this rebound space. Giving an opportunity for the fascia to contract back. This moment of integration, just like when we learn new information. And softening even in your rebound. And if you'd like to stay here a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to. Whenever you're ready to prepare our twist on the opposite side, we might take some movements just to awaken. Maybe readjust the hips or the shoulders. But then again, we're going to hug the knees into the chest. We're going to twist to the left so that the right leg is on top. Whether you come into supine and take any props for your supine twist, hugging the knees high into the chest. But then if you want to extend that top right leg out to the side to come into hummingbird, feel free. Foot resting on a yoga block, a blanket, a pillow, maybe a few props depending on what you're using. From hummingbird, the right knee can have a slight bend. Just notice what each option does, and then you can decide what works best for you. And then we'll close our eyes and settle here. And taking a cleansing breath or two, let the body adjust and arrive. Observing your internal experience. Softening whenever you're ready. And staying focused here. If you feel distracted, you can come back to maybe the theme of practice. If not the theme of practice, maybe just noticing the body, the breath, the body softening. And feeling held within the body here. Though our internal tissues are shifting and changing, our body is solid, our body is grounded. The comfort that we held helps to cradle any discomfort that we experience. And we'll be in our twist for a few more breaths. And then whenever you're ready, taking your time, no rush, body will begin to unravel. Moving your legs one at a time, arms one at a time. There might be a counter movement or two, something to nourish the body, feel free. Maybe the body just guides you to relax and take a rebound space. But there's no right or wrong. Just basking here within all of our awareness, within the subtle sensations and the expansiveness within the breath. And the closing of any cycles, even just in simple relation to ourselves. Maybe in certain ways we define ourselves or relate to ourselves. If you're in the middle of something, you're more than welcome to stay here. You can stay in meditation for as long as you'd like. But if you're ready to move a little bit, we're going to let ourselves talk about the Reclined Mermaid, where last week we messed around with a new variation just for a couple seconds on each side. But we'll be able to hold that in our stretch for today. So we'll gently make our way onto the belly. No rush to get there. Take your time. Move any props out of the way that you may have used for the twist that we may not need. And we're going to allow our left palm to come to the top of our mat here. Just going to reach out long. Your right hand can press into the floor. We're going to roll into that shoulder. So we're going to look to keep our left bicep on our left ear on our bicep as we hug the knees into the chest, kind of like a supine twist feeling. You're more than welcome to keep your head on your bicep, and you might lift up the head and walk out the arm a little bit farther. But when you feel like you're in the shape pretty good, you're welcome to bring your head down to the floor, and this will deepen the stretch. From there, though, you have the option to bend into that left elbow. This is what we did last week. And you can let your hand just dangle behind you. Playing around with the elbow bending or the arm straightening, do what's best at any point in time. Right palm can stay resting in front of you. It might come on top of the hip, or maybe it will bind behind the back. But whenever you're ready, you'll settle into stillness and allow the eyes to close. Our sensations of stretch sometimes might feel like a stinging, other times they might feel very soothing. And similar to the closings or the endings of things, sometimes it does feel like a sting, and other times it is very soothing. And it doesn't have to be one more than the other. We can allow the blend to exist, breathing through it, breathing with it. Continuing to let go of any clenching or gripping. We'll be here in our stretch for a few more breaths. If that left elbow is bending, let's take a breath and slowly unbend the arm. Right palm will sweep back in front of us, and as we allow the legs to lengthen out, they'll move a little bit here and there, and as we create some space, we'll roll off of this left shoulder. You might have rolled out perfectly, you might need to readjust, but let your arms relax wherever you'd like them to. Maybe you just stay still on the belly. If you do want to rock into the hips a little bit, feel free. If you want to bend into your knees, kick up your feet, windshield wiper the legs from side to side. You're welcome to stay here and rebound, or maybe you arrive into a child's pose shape, or maybe you roll onto your back. Noticing this lightness, this energetic space. The awareness of who we are or what the body is. And if you'd like to stay here a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to. If you're interested in Coming back to the belly. You might take a little movement first. Sometimes, maybe a little low cobra or a sphinx pose or something. But whenever you're ready, we'll prep for the other side. So right arm comes to the top of the mat here. We'll roll into the shoulder, right ear coming to rest on the bicep. Walking out the arm, just creating space underneath the rib cage. You can really take any variation for your legs, especially, if you're familiar with open wing and we have all those different leg variations, you're more than welcome to explore those here. Keeping your ear on your bicep, or maybe your head reaches down to the floor. If you'd like to bend the elbow and come into that variation, you're welcome to let the hand dangle behind you. And left arm resting in front of you on your left hip or binding behind the back. And we'll let ourselves settle here into the shape. Sometimes where the body is stretching, it might seem like we're expecting it. Sometimes other places might surprise us or catch us off guard. But our body's fascial network that is connected in one piece, based on where our arms and legs are resting, all places are possible to stretch. And seeing and understanding the connection of our body, just like parts in a story. One threaded into the other. We'll stay here for a few more breaths. Maybe softening a little more deeply. And then whenever you're ready, if that right elbow is still bent, we'll slowly unravel it. Left arm can come in front of us, and as you straighten out your legs little by little, creating space to roll off of the shoulder and onto the belly. Readjusting your chest, letting your arms maybe cross underneath you or just spread out along the floor. Whether you stay in stillness here, take some movements, Transition into rebound wherever you'd like to be. Noticing the subtle sensations. Noticing your presence here. Rebound is also an act of meditation. If you'd like to stay here a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to stay. If you're choosing to release, then we might gently awaken. Maybe there's a movement to the legs, a movement to the arms. If you haven't gone to child's pose and you want to, just so that you can come up to sit, you might push into the floor, walk the knees underneath you, hips can reach to the heels, taking a breath. And eventually we'll all come back up to sit. No rush to get there. We'll talk about sleeping swan next, right? Our pigeon pose. It's just, in yin, when we're relaxed into it, it's sleeping swan. But I'll give us a few options. In terms of the sleeping swan shape, you might have a pillow or blanket in front of you and maybe something to prop your hips as well. Our left knee will come up towards the wrist first as our right leg walks behind us. So we're just walking into the shape. Propping that left glute if helpful. Maybe it's even the right hip in front of you that needs the prop, especially if your left heel kind of digs into the hip. It could be comfortable to prop. And then you can stack your blocks or your pillows and things, whatever you're going to use here. Whether it's just for the forehead, maybe it's for the forearms and the chest. You can be creative with how your body wants to be propped. And in the event you don't want to come into this forward shape, then I would recommend laying down and come into figure 4. At that point, we'll allow the left ankle to come across the right thigh. And even your hands might help you here just to gently support. You can leave your right foot flat to the floor, but if you put some props underneath the right foot, just the little lift of the pelvis and the lift of the hips is going to deepen the stretch. You might even explore hovering that foot in the air, not holding onto it, and then lowering it if ever needed. Blocks also underneath the foot will do the trick. It doesn't have to be pillows. Okay, so allow yourself to explore here wherever you'd like to go. Sometimes it's starting in one shape and then transitioning to the other. Our practice does guide us into stillness, but not irresponsibly. Following the body's internal cues. Moving and adjusting whenever needed, and then we come back into stillness. We might notice the physical response coming from the body. You might notice the emotional response coming from the mind. As the body continues to breathe here and soften, everything begins to adapt and acclimate. And if not, then that might be a cue to readjust. But wherever you are, whatever you might be experiencing, challenging our edge, the place between comfort and discomfort. Understanding the body a little bit more deeply. We'll be here for a few more moments. Maybe taking another cleansing breath to settle. And then whenever you're ready, very slowly, no rush at all, the body will begin to release. And as you slowly move out of this shape, legs and arms will guide us in all different directions, depending on where we were. Coming into any counter movements, whether that looks like a particular yoga shape or just something that the body comes into. Doesn't have to have a particular word or phrase connected to it. Eventually, facing any direction in your room, you'll arrive into rebound. In that moment to notice the subtle sensations, allowing the tissue to contract back. There might be external stillness, but internal movement. That new patterning settling into the muscle memory. Not only benefiting our physical movements, but even just the functions of our cells. Our cells respond to the tightness in our tissues. The cells will also respond when the tissues release. And if you'd like to stay here a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to do so. But on your next breath, you can stay. You might move a little bit, awaken from rebound. And then we're going to let ourselves prepare for the right side. So if you're choosing sleeping swan, we'll bring the right knee up. If I'll show reclined figure 4 first, right ankle over the left thigh. Any props underneath the left foot. The closer you guide your left foot and the higher the props, it'll be a little bit deeper of a stretch. So like right now with my left foot as close as it can get on a block, I'm probably at my edge for these couple minutes, but you can explore in terms of whatever is best for you. If you're choosing sleeping swan, right knee comes towards the wrist and the shin is either directly underneath you or at a diagonal. Staying at the palms, lowering to your forearms and using any props around you to support. And whatever you took on the left side, you can do a different shape for this right side. That may be because your body's asking for that. That may be just because of a particular, injury or something. That could be just based on bone structure for this particular side. Or there doesn't have to be any specific reason at all. If you can sense it, then I would follow that. And again, this time honoring our senses, realizing what we no longer need while also realizing what we may need. Softening around all of these areas helps us to gain some clarity, arriving into a different perspective. Checking in with your breath here. And we have a few more moments in our stretch. Softening a little more deeply, giving your body a little more patience. And then whenever you're ready, on your next breath, body will begin to unravel. Taking your time, Body can move in any particular way, no rhyme or reason needed. Maybe you find a particular counter movement that's comforting or nourishing or complements the stretch that we were just in. Moving through the legs, moving through the arms, moving through the torso. We're just going to take a brief moment here, letting the tissues contract back. Opportunity to notice the breath, notice the subtle sensations. But then whenever you're ready, we're going to use our final rebound of practice for our Shavasana. So taking any other counter movements as you'd like. Maybe some of those movements are just setting yourself up for Shavasana. If you do like to use any particular props, might be a pillow or a blanket, maybe nothing at all. Whether you choose to take Shavasana on your back, on your belly, on your side body, whatever is going to feel best. Letting your arms and legs relax once more. Softening through the fingers and toes. And as our body settles into this final rebound, our time in Shavasana absorbing our entire practice, we'll welcome ourselves here. Very gently. Let's begin to deepen the breath. Just noticing the way the body has relaxed here, settled. And whenever you're ready, let's begin to take some gentle movements. As we begin to wiggle into the fingers and toes and roll around into the wrists and ankles. We might stretch the arms up and above the head. And if you'd like to, the knees can bend in. Feet might come flat to the floor for a moment, and you can windshield wiper the knees, gently awakening through the torso. If it feels good, you might hug your knees into the chest one more time, wrapping around the body. But then eventually, let's roll either to the right or left. And as the bottom arm rests on as a pillow for the head, you might stay here and end your practice. But if you'd like to press down into the floor and come up to sit, you're more than welcome to. Closing practice, however you'd like, take your time. Wherever you'll be, let's find stillness and close the eyes once more. Taking a moment to reflect here. Noticing the reclaimed space within the body, the expansion in the breath, clarity in the heart or mind. And just honoring our theme of practice, our intentions, and anything experienced. Palms can stay relaxed where they are, or maybe gather into prayer. And you can choose to take one cleansing breath or join me for the sound of Om as we breathe in. Om. Gently bowing the chin to the chest. Thank you for practicing with me this evening, being elevated through